Hi everyone, welcome back to the Murder Tapes podcast, season 2, episode 7. I hope you all have had a great week so far. My Yeti has been giving me a lot of problems. I should have said my Yeti microphone because saying Yeti sounds interesting, but anyways, you know what I'm trying to say. The cord broke and the sound's just been kind of weird, so I apologize for that. Amazon kept delaying all of my orders and it's just been a very interesting week. I've also been planning my graduation party and catching up on studying because finals are coming up, as well as my birthday on the 11th of April, so hopefully I can make some fun plans for that. Before we get started, I do want to say thank you so much for the continuous support. I really appreciate all of the new listeners, and it's so cool to see how many people are listening from all around the world. I look at my analytics every single day. Today we're going to be talking about the Cheshire murders, and it is worth mentioning that this case will make you very angry, so be prepared for that. I went down a whole rabbit hole when researching this case, and I was not in the best of moods after learning about it, so let's get into it. It was a Sunday morning before the tragedy happened. Jennifer and her daughter Michaela went to their local Stop and Shop because Michaela was planning on making her family dinner and was in need of some ingredients. While they were out shopping, a man named Joshua Komisarjevsky was secretly watching them. Once they left, he proceeded to follow them home. He saw their nice house and said, quote, "I started thinking it's a very nice house and a very nice car and thought it would be nice to be there someday, to not have to worry about financial problems and stress." Joshua and Stephen, the other perpetrator, exchanged this message a little before, quote, "I'm chomping at the bit to get started." According to them both, they had only planned to rob the family, but things started to spiral out of control. Their plan was to rob them in the middle of the night in order to make some extra money. They were to tie the family up and leave them unharmed, but when they arrived on July 23rd, early in the morning, they found Dr. William asleep on the couch. They also spotted a baseball bat near the basement stairs. Joshua grabbed the bat and hit William 4 to 5 times over the head, while Stephen held a 9mm gun to him. They then both bound him with rope and zip ties around his wrists and ankles so tight that it cut into his skin. His ankle bones also cut into each other. Jennifer, Michaela, and Haley were also all bound in their rooms. Their wrists and ankles were secured to their bedpost, and pillowcases were put over their heads. They both then went to search the house for cash. They went through drawers and cupboards and found William's wallet, but it didn't have any cash, just pictures of his wife and daughters. After doing so, they decided to bind William to a support pole. Once this was complete, they went to look for cash again and ended up finding a bank book that showed an account with $30,000. Stephen then took Jennifer to a bank in order to withdraw $15,000. He told her he would harm her family even more if she didn't, so she complied. She entered the bank and asked to withdraw the $15,000 from her account. She then told the shocked bank teller she needed the money because her family, including her husband and 2 daughters, were currently being held hostage, and if she didn't get this money out, her family would be harmed. I have added links to photos of her at the bank, as well as video footage, and it is so heartbreaking to see how terrified she looks. You can literally see it in her face. Unfortunately, the bank teller gave her the money and didn't end up keeping her there. Sergeant Chris Coate was stationed around the bank when dispatcher Donald Miller and officer Robert Reagan called his cell phone around 9:25 and stated that a 48-year-old mother had just left the bank, possibly with her captor and a Chrysler Pacifica, and it looked to be going down Sorghum Miller Road. Miller and Reagan tell Coate to head down towards that area and see if they could intercept the car. Sergeant Cole responded and stated that he was on Maple Avenue, the road behind the shopping plaza where the bank is. He then said he was either about to turn onto West Main Street or that they turned onto West Main Street. New Haven State Attorney Michael Dearington is currently reviewing the information. Sergeant Cole is no longer an officer with the force. Jennifer left and was taken back home. Not too long after, Stephen raped and strangled Jennifer to death. Investigators believed that he also engaged in necrophilia. William would recall hearing thumping noises and moaning from one of the perpetrators. He also stated he heard one of the men say, quote, "Don't worry, it's all going to be over in a couple of minutes." During this time, the bank teller grew worried as time went on and decided to alert the police, which led authorities to head to the home. Joshua was also engaging in violent behavior. He raped Michaela and documented this process on his cell phone. After they both did these horrific things, they doused Jennifer's body and her daughters that were still alive in gasoline and set the house on fire. They were hoping that all of the evidence would be destroyed and would allow them to get away with this crime. The daughters did unfortunately die due to smoke inhalation, but William was able to escape out of a hatchway in the cellar he was tied up in. Both perpetrators then tried to flee by stealing the family car. The perpetrators decided to crash into the police cruisers, which led to their arrest. It's important to note how horrifying and violent this crime was. This attack lasted 7 hours, and the police were actually outside when William escaped, completely covered in blood and yelling for help. There was also a hostage negotiator on the scene, and William begged police to go in, but they insisted on waiting outside. I believe that if they interviewed sooner, they may have been able to save more of the family. And I did also want to note that in one of the news articles, it said that one of the neighbors and police officers could hear a girl screaming, which is absolutely terrifying. I'm now going to play audio of Jennifer's sister and parents speaking out about the murders. And just so you're not confused, Billy is William, so if you hear that reference, just know that they're talking about William.
I got a phone call here on Monday afternoon from Billy's sister. And I said, Hannah, it's about the girls, isn't it? And she said, these two men came in at what they think was 3 o'clock in the morning, and they beat Billy really badly with a baseball bat. And his head's all split apart. And then they proceeded to do all these awful things to the girls. And they tied them to their beds about 9 o'clock. Jen was made to go to the bank and withdraw money. And then when she came back from the bank, they set the house on fire and killed them all so that they could try to cover up their tracks, I guess. But they got the two guys. And all I could think was, who cares if they got the two guys? We don't have our loved ones anymore. And that's all we had. The hardest thing I think I've ever had to do in my life was to tell my parents that one of their other children, their only other child, was dead. And their two grandchildren, 2 of their 4.
She quickly told us that the home was set on fire, but Bill escaped. We went to the hospital and got to see Bill for the first time. He was badly beaten, and he tried to apologize to us for not saving our daughter and our grandchildren. And we had to convince him that he was in no condition to be able to save anyone, and we were grateful
that he was alive. Right. My sister, she was beautiful. And she was usually like the lead in the plays at school. She was on the homecoming court. She was the captain of the Trojanette team. So she really was kind of like a winner person.
Bill was a committed, dedicated doctor, would leave at 7 o'clock in the morning and not be back home until maybe 9:30.
When Jen was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, Haley really wanted to raise money because she felt like if she didn't do anything, it was possible that her mother could die.
Haley was able to raise a little over $50,000 being a spokesperson for the MS Society here in Connecticut, receiving awards for that, although you'd never know it.
I'm a very detective-like person. I like to know details, and until I know the details around things, it's hard to figure things out. I would like to know why my sister and Stephen Hayes weren't stopped at the bank, why she wasn't held at the bank. There were some police officers that, off the record, said to people in the town that they heard the girls screaming in the end. And why weren't there policemen looking in the windows? My sister had no blinds on her windows. I just want the facts. And nobody has told us what really happened.
At the time of the crime, Joshua and Stephen were out on parole for previous burglaries committed. While they both claim they weren't planning on murdering the family, authorities believe otherwise because gasoline was purchased prior to the crime. When they were both taken into custody, they were quick to point fingers at each other. At one point, Joshua decided to show how evil he truly is by telling police he thought William was a coward for not stopping them and saving his family. In 2010, Stephen was sentenced to death and Joshua was sentenced to death the following year. However, they never saw execution despite William and others protesting for it. On April 11th, 2012, which, side note, I mentioned this earlier, but my birthday is April 11th, the Connecticut House of Representatives voted to repeal capital punishment for future cases, leaving past death sentences in place. The Connecticut Senate had already voted for the bill, and on April 25th, Governor Dan Malloy signed the bill into law. In August of 2015, Connecticut abolished the death penalty, meaning they would both be sentenced to life in prison. A year after the trial, Stephen asked to be put to death, but his request was denied. The death penalty process for both perpetrators will cost more than $7 million and is projected to last over a decade. The Pettit family was known by others for being very close. Jennifer was a nurse and co-director of the health center at a private boarding school. William was an endocrinologist. Haley was getting ready to attend Dartmouth that fall. She participated in varsity cross country, basketball, and was also an honor roll student. Michaela loved to cook and planned on continuing her sister's fundraising for multiple sclerosis research. I'm going to include audio of their pastor and friends speaking about her fundraising efforts.
Haley was able to raise a little over $50,000 being a spokesperson for the MS Society here in Connecticut, receiving awards for that, although you'd never know it.
I hardly knew about Haley helping with MS, and that was just because she was just so quiet about everything, and she could have bragged about everything she did. I mean, she was a straight-A student. I think about her all the time. It's hard not to think about her. You'll find just something to relate to her about.
Michaela sometimes shied away from adults, but if she saw somebody was having a difficult time, she went to them and tried to help with whatever she could.
William was the only survivor and went on to start a foundation in honor of his family. Through this organization, he met his second wife, Christine Pauliff, and they both had a son. He told the New York Post, quote, "It's always there. It's shorter sometimes, it's more contained, it's less provoking, but it's always there. I want some good to come because they would have done an awful lot of good if they had lived their natural lives. I want their lives to go forward, and I want to be able to pay it forward to them." I'm going to play audio of him speaking at their funerals just 5 days after the crime.
Well, first of all, thank you for all coming out today to honor the memory of the girls. I really like to say thank you to people from all over the state of Connecticut and all over the country. We've been surrounded with love and cards and flowers and prayer from east to west and north to south. I met Jen at Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh for med. She was a new nurse, and I was the know-it-all third-year medical student. I was trying to correct Jen on how to take the blood pressure the correct way. Since I had about 3 minutes of experience at that point. But it became clear pretty quickly that she knew more about pediatrics and how to care for kids than I had ever known.
William also represented District 22 in the Connecticut House of Representatives from 2017 to 2023. Their perpetrators had rocky upbringings. Joshua's family came from money, but he was adopted and diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder as a child. Oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD, is a behavior disorder that causes people to become angry, uncooperative, and hostile. He was a victim of abuse among his adopted siblings, but he was also a perpetrator on some occasions. His parents were very religious and refused to get him treatment. Instead, they blamed a satanic cult for his actions as an adult, such as breaking into homes and using drugs. I'm now going to play audio of his aunt and uncles discussing the crime.
We were right in the kitchen here, and we got a call from my brother Ben, and he said, "I think Josh has been involved in this home invasion." And I said to him, "Home invasion? This was a murder, and Josh was involved?" So you see the name spelled out, the Komisarshevsky name, and You sit there and you hold your head in your hands and you can't believe it. And you want to cry. This young man's a monster. And that is not the way that we, as members of this family, behave.
The other perpetrator, Stephen Hayes, had a similar childhood to Joshua. He was abused as a child and robbed people in order to support his heavy drug habit. He met Joshua in a halfway house in 2006, and this is when they became friends. A year after they met, they committed these crimes together. Stephen has since changed his name in prison to Linda Hayes after undergoing a gender transition. I'm now going to play audio of his daughter speaking about him in her childhood.
The first time that I found out about my dad, I was probably about 5 years old. He would take me to the movies, and he really tried to be that father figure to me, but couldn't stay out of trouble. And so when he went back to jail, he would write to me and I would write back, and that was our way of communicating. Dear Alicia, hello honey, and how are you doing? I haven't heard from you in a while, and neither has Grandma. I want so bad never to hurt you again, and I feel like I am because I'm still here. Every day I wake up wondering if today will be the day that my name is called. The stress is almost unbearable. When I first found out about the incident, and my mind was just I told him to call me if something was wrong. I needed to talk to him. I needed to get answers from him. What made them get together with this one guy and do what they did? Whose idea was it? Was it just one, or was it both, or did it just happen? It's just there's no easy answer, and I might not like the answer I get, but it's all just why.
I do think it's important to note that while a lot of people believe parents are to blame for violent behavior due to bad childhoods, they actually aren't a factor in this cycle. I recently read a book by Stanton Samenow, an amazing psychologist and writer, may he rest in peace. The book is called Inside the Criminal Mind, and in chapter 6, labeled Parents Don't Turn Children into Criminals, he discusses all of the reasons parents are not to be held responsible for their children's actions. One of the things that stood out to me was a study he did on families with multiple children. I believe it was a family of 3 or 5, but don't quote me on that, and only one of the children went on to express violent behavior. Regardless of the amount of therapy or how his mom had talked to him, along with other kids and other studies, they still continued to engage in bad behavior. This is because of the human personality. Children are able to distinguish what behavior is right and wrong. However, some of them choose to continue to act out in order to get their way. With all of this being said, I do want to make it known that any abuse children encounter is extremely unfortunate and no one should have to go through it. But I do think it's important to have these conversations because you often don't hear about this stuff. Stephen decided to speak about the murders on a podcast called 15 Minutes. I'm going to include some audio of the episodes and I'll link it in the show notes if you want to take a listen. There are quite a bit of episodes, so I probably won't include them all, but feel free to go check it out.
An inmate at SCI Green. This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution.
Hey, good evening, Stephen. Hey, how you doing, Steve?
Oh, I'm doing good.
Tonight we're going to discuss what happened the night of everything, or the day of everything when it happened. I want to basically give you the mic and let you explain to everybody what happens. What happened? What transpired? I mean, from the time that Josh picked you up until everything was over.
Okay, well, when we had spoke about this, I spent the last 2 days actually thinking how to actually answer it. I mean, of course, I'm going to answer the question with, exactly what happened. But the thing is, without knowing the why, a lot of the things that are going to come out doesn't really make sense. Mm-hmm. I kind of wanted to start in 2006.
Okay.
Well, the understanding is there. And then, okay, so it actually starts in 2003.
Okay.
To that point, I was an addict. I was your typical definition. I had just gone to jail. We spent about $180,000 on coke, and a lot of people were hurt.
Now you're saying we spent. Now that was you and just other people, or Josh?
No, me and my wife.
Okay.
Josh wasn't in play yet.
Okay.
So I had called home, and during that time I had gotten close to my daughter, gotten close to my son, and I love my kids. And I was talking to my daughter, and she said to me, "Daddy, I thought you promised you'd never go to jail again."
Right.
Well, I gave the typical addict answer. And her response was, "Well, maybe you just haven't learned your lesson yet. Mm-hmm. And I still love you." And when I hung up the phone, it rung something with me. And I actually went back to my cell and I attempted suicide. I took pills. And when I woke up the next morning,
This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution. Green. This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
When I woke up the next morning, I went to psych, and that's where I started my help.
Now that was in Connecticut, correct?
Yep, that's where I got clean. It was May 5th, 2003 is my clean day.
Okay, and what facility were you at that time?
I was at Summers.
Okay.
Then I got sentenced. I went to Walker. From there, I fought to get to Carl Robinson to get back to the time program.
Okay.
I knew about the time program. I had poo-pooed it just before I left, and I wanted to get in there, and I did.
Right.
And I got into recovery. And a lot of people said I was overdoing it, but my sponsor who was there, along with my counselors, were like, no, you're doing exactly what you need to do.
Okay.
Because, the things that people are saying I'm overdoing, they're the ones getting high.
Right.
I know I can't do this no more. Either I'm going to be dead or in jail the rest of my life. Like I said, my daughter woke me up, and that's my bottom. So I did my time, and that's when I ended up going to the halfway house.
Okay.
I had been clean for 4 years. I had recovery of that of 15 and 20 years. Like I said, I put 24 hours a day into it.
Right.
And I went to Berman Treatment Center, which is part of Community Solutions.
Right.
And that's where I met Josh.
Okay.
So he was my roommate. He was a quiet kid. He stayed in his room. Didn't bother nobody, did his art. I stayed in there and did my recovery. Pretty much the rest of the people there were getting high.
Right.
And so I wanted to be away from them people. So at that point, we just were like barely knowing
This
each
is
other.
a call from.
My intention was to leave there and to go to the Warner House in Torrington. I had been there several times. I knew there was real recovery there. I knew what to expect, and I knew if I went there, I was going to get what I need.
Right.
But Community Solutions, where I was at, that was possible. But they said it would take a couple months.
Okay.
To make that move. They were pushing, advocating for me to go to one of their houses.
Right.
They came and they actually solicited. So I had talked to my daughter and let her know that I'm going to Community Solutions. They had told me they would give me the same things that Warner House would. They promised me. I talked to my sponsor. He said, you'd be closer to me. It's probably the best move. Plus, you can get out immediately.
Right.
And Josh had left a week before me. I didn't know where he went. A week later, like I said, I had told my counselor, okay, I'm going to go with Community Solutions. You guys are going to do exactly what I need. It's the better choice.
Right.
And I ended up in Berman House.
Okay.
I mean, Stillman House.
Okay, Stillman House. That's over on Retreat Avenue near Hartford Hospital.
So I ended up there, and I was shocked to see that my roommate was Josh. It was a 3-person room. There were 2 empty beds. I took one of them. So it was about another 2 weeks before somebody else came in. His name was Mike, and he was into recovery. I used to not push recovery on Josh. You don't push it. He'd always say he wasn't an addict. I'd say, well, that's what I said. And what you do, you identify with a person. I just name some of the things I do and let him think, you're doing those things.
Right.
Mike, he was into recovery. So me and him would have a lot of recovery conversations. And Josh would listen in and talk. And we started going to meetings together. And we started going to the one, the Cocaine Anonymous meeting at Institute of Living. And that's when Josh, shocked me. We had been going probably for, 3 or 4 weeks. And I share every meeting, and a lot of other people do. And he actually got up and said, my name is Josh. I'm an addict. And I got to thank Steve. He's the one that made me realize it. And I was shocked. I didn't expect that. And he told his story and had everybody crying. He told a pretty powerful story. And so that's how me and Josh got close. But things were happening at Stillman House.
Okay.
Everything they had promised me that I would have gotten at Warner was not happening.
Right.
They lied about everything. and that's because they were dirty. I'm fighting for recovery. The only person who was on my side was Jackie, my counselor, and she ended up quitting after they, got rid of me because they set me up with a dirty urine.
Right.
And a lot of people, nobody believed me. And like I said, this is why I need to tell the why, because I get tired of the naysayers that sit at their computer and, just type in judgment without knowing what's really going on, because what I do is to save someone's life. I did it when I was at Carl Robinson. People hear your story, you reach people, and it changes people. And when you have people judging, it can, the right person may not hear it and go out and die. So I take this serious.
Right.
So I started going off the deep end. I was trying to get out of the house. I went calling the lawyer. I said I was doing everything I could to get out. And I was getting ready to talk to the feds because they had closed down Watkinson House for urine tampering and embezzlement, extortion and all types of things. They were looking at Cheney House, but we didn't have any Fed inmates, so there was nobody looking. So all the staff that got left that program were at our house. So I just wanted out of there. I wanted to get to Warner House. And that's when I got set up with the dirty urine. And that's why Jackie quit, because, a lot of people knew that I was really into recovery. And the thing is, it destroyed me. At first, I was ready to give up on recovery. I met J.B. Gates. I beat the ticket because I said my urine the next morning was clean, because I really didn't get high.
Right.
And but the damage was already done. My family didn't believe me.
Right. So you're saying that you got sent back in, and then they did a retest, and the retest came back negative.
Right. I mean, I was crying on the way there, begging for. I said, I'm clean. I really was. And Scott Tatro, my parole officer, was basically saying bullshit. Not in. The lieutenant that was, bringing me in. I mean, I'm a grown man. I'm crying. He said, look, I can give him another test right now. And Tatro was like, well, if this one comes back clean, we'll let him out. If not, and I said, I knew I was set up. I'm going to come back clean because I know I'm clean.
Right.
So I ended up beating the ticket. I went to J.B. Gates, and corrections was the only people that believed me. My family did. My daughter, my son turned his back on me. My wife did. Even my mom didn't believe me. The rest of my family. So when I got out in 2007, I was still in recovery. I had a job within 2 days, 2 jobs actually, at the Meadows and doing landscaping. But I had money problems. And my mother had money problems. My brother was sleeping on the floor. He's getting high. We pretty much had switched places. He used to be the good son. I was the one that always borrowed money and, ran my mother into the ground. And now here it is. I'm giving her my paychecks, and she's giving them to him so he can go get high. That was an issue with me.
So let me ask you: were you in Silliman House when Josh originally made the statement or suggestion about the
home invasion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that was before you went back to Gates, or that was after?
That was when I was in the halfway house.
Okay.
We were roommates. He had brought it up one day. Like I said, we always talked about all types of stuff.
Right.
And it was something that he brought up, and I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And that was it. The conversation was over.
Right.
And it was actually after that is when he, admitted to getting clean. So I just took it as, he was, thinking about going out and doing dumb stuff because he didn't understand that recovery was possible.
Right.
And so, like I said, once we got to 2007, that's where things began to unravel with my mom.
Right.
My brother got in her head. Like I said, we had switched places. She doesn't know what to believe. Everybody still believes that my urine was dirty. And, I had money problems. I'm giving my money to her because she needs it to survive. Everywhere I went to I had a car, but I couldn't get it fixed. It had been sitting for 7 months at a shop. I didn't have the money for that. I didn't have the money to register it. And every car lot I went to, they promised me that we're going to give you the car, but it always came down, you needed a big, giant
down payment
or a cosigner. went to banks, and that just started getting to me. Before I knew it, I was drinking, and I was actually dating a girl who was still in the Institute of Living, and I cared about her, and it bothered me that. So I ended up stopping going to meetings because I'm relapsing, and I can't say with honesty that I'm clean. I'm now sitting in a meeting and I'm perpetrating, and it bothered me because I really did take this serious. And so as things began to unwind and unravel, that's when I ended up relapsing. I got a gun.
You have 1 minute left.
And I just want to stop here. Okay.
Right.
I said, I hope this helps somebody. Like I said, I'm going to be telling some
Thank
stories
you for using Securus. Goodbye.
We're going to go over the rest of what happened with the incident in Cheshire. So, Stephen, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. So, if you want to continue from where we left off the last time, that would be good.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure where we did leave off.
Okay.
I think I had mentioned that I got a pistol, a gun from somebody, and it was like, I think it was a week before Cheshire happened.
Now, was this a real gun, or this was a fake gun, or?
No, this was a real gun.
Okay.
And I got it with the intention of I was going to do a robbery, but then I decided I can't do that, so I was going to commit suicide.
Okay.
I had gotten rid of the vehicle that I had. It was really cheap. I was in the process of, I got some cocaine, and I picked up a working girl, and we were getting high. It was going to be my last night. I sent her over to get some bacon cheeseburgers. It was at, because we were in Hartford, she went over to Hooters to get some bacon cheeseburgers, and that's when I had planned to do it. I had pulled out the pistol, I packed my pipe, I did a hit, and I just put the pistol in my mouth when she came in the door. Apparently she wanted to know how I wanted the burger. Didn't tell her that because I had no intention of eating it.
Okay.
She freaked out when she saw the gun in my mouth. I had a note there that you can have everything, just grab it and go. So she ended up talking to me. She never went back and picked up the food. She gave me her story of what happened. I gave her mine. And like I said, I was still committed. So I had went and jumped in the shower. We had been talking pretty much all night at this point, getting high. I jumped in the shower, and when I came out, she looked like worried. I picked up my book bag. I was looking, and I saw the Coke was still there. My wallet was still there. So I just thought maybe she had, I don't know, I didn't know what to think. So I gave her what was left. I paid her, put the stuff in my book bag that I had, and got in the car and I left. And I went to the West Hartford Reservoir.
Okay.
I pulled out a pistol, pulled it out, and it wasn't there. She had taken the gun.
Okay.
I flew back to the motel, got there, the door was open, and sitting on the table was a note that said, you have a lot to live for. I hope you forgive me for this. One day you will. And she said she didn't take the drugs or the money. She took the gun. And the rest of the week, I spent working and, doing what I was supposed to do. And it came up to the final weekend. Friday, my mom had told me that I was out on Monday. I had the weekend. Monday morning I was going to be gone. It was because of a lot of the animosity that was going on between my brother and I. At this point, I had been relapsing. I had stopped going to meetings. I stopped working my program. So I definitely wasn't thinking clear. So Saturday, I had made contact with Josh, and then I agreed to do the home invasion.
Okay.
So I parked at Stop and Shop. He picked me up. We went around looking, and the first house that he went in, I didn't go in. I stayed outside. He came back out, and I talked him out of it. I guess I think I said there were just too many people.
Right.
The second house, we went in. He went in. I went in with him. We went in through the back sliding glass door, and right away you could tell there was a bunch of college kids there. Like a frat house type setup.
Okay.
He had grabbed the knife, and he used it to cut something. And I told him, look, this ain't going to work. We got a plastic gun. Because the night before we had gone to Walmart, we had gotten a plastic gun. We had gotten the zip ties. I mean, that night we had, before we did the home invasions, we had went to, pick up the stuff.
Right.
Now we're in the second house, and, I talked them out of it. I said, look, we can't handle this. There's at least 4 or 5 people here. All college, males, we can't handle it. So I talked them out of it. We left, and then we went to the third house and couldn't get in.
Okay.
And by then it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we went back to his vehicle, and I didn't even have any money for gas.
Right.
The truck was on empty, and he gave me $20. I was under the impression that he gave me $20 from, his paycheck. I didn't know that he had actually robbed stuff from the house. Took wallets.
Right.
Never told me that. So that I took the $20. I think I put 10 in the tank, and I went home, and I had $10 left. And I know they made a big deal out of this, but because I had said I wasn't going to do it. At that point, I was giving up. But then as I was sitting on my mom's couch, I was thinking, I had called them up and said, look, I'm going to do this. I have to. I'm out tomorrow morning. I don't have a choice. And that's when he said he had the perfect house.
Okay.
There was a father, a mother, 2 daughters that were teenage, and he knew a lot about it. And so I agreed. I think it was about 10 o'clock. I left the house. I know during the day I had texted him, and when I had said that, I was chomping in the bit or the horses want to get out of the barn and stuff like that, it was a comical statement, but it was made to go get drunk. Because by that point, I was doing a lot more drinking than I ever did because it was cheaper.
Right.
I didn't have a whole lot of money, and so I went ahead. I wanted to hurry up and get to the bar to get something to drink because my psyche was frazzled. So I went and I had a couple drinks there, and then I drove and I met him at Stop and Shop, and we had gone to a bar. We had drove around, and that's when we parked and went into the house.
Okay.
It was about 9 o'clock. About 10:30. He had gone by. I dropped him off. He looked at the house, said he wanted to canvass it, and then we drove around for a while. Today we were talking about, what had led up to the events that led me here. And before I get into that, I just want to make, 2 declarations so people understand, 2 different things. One is, when this all went down, Josh had given a 17-page statement saying that I did everything. I didn't give a statement whatsoever. So immediately, they assumed, because of the media pressure, that I was the ringleader.
Okay.
That's what the DA said, because, in their eyes, I had a lengthy criminal record. I was an experienced criminal. Josh was young with only 1 prior conviction. And the fact that he gave a statement I didn't, they automatically assumed that I was the ringleader. Once they got into it, they realized that he was the one.
Right.
He had said that, he never went into Walmart, but he's on video in the store with me, giving me money, paying for stuff. And he lied on everything in his statement. But by that point, the bell had been rung. So, the day before, the way we had done the houses was we canvassed the house, walked around it, looked for an entrance to get in, and I pulled him out of 2. And the third one, we never did go in, and he gave me $20. My truck was on E. I didn't think he had taken anything. Apparently he had taken a couple $100, so he wasn't even giving me my cut. So the next day I had, $10 because I ended up putting 10 in the tank, and I was to be kicked out of my house, and this was on Sunday. When I called him in the afternoon and told him, look, I have to do this. I don't have any choice. This time we have to go through with it. Because it was me that got cold feet.
Right.
He was sitting in the Stop and Shop parking lot, and he said, I already know the house. I know the mother, the father, it's 2 kids, both girls, teenage. Yet when you read his statement, he says he followed her home. Oh, what a nice car. Oh, what a nice house, which doesn't jive with what is in reality. Plus, this house was only 1,000 feet away from his.
That's what I was going to bring up, too. I actually did look, and Josh was living on North Brookvale Road at that time.
Literally, and when you look at his first trial, he was known as a pedophile.
This is a call from.
Looking into, the houses and stalking the girls, so he would have been stalking Haley.
Right.
At that point, she was right in his neighborhood. But when we got to this house, I left my mom's. I spent $8 at a bar, got 2 drinks. Then I drove to Cheshire, parked in the parking lot, and that's where I met him. I had text, the horses, want to get out of the barn or something like that, but it was in reference to drinking.
Right.
Because I didn't know what to do at that point. The next morning, I was homeless. So he picked me up. We went to a bar. We had a few drinks. We ended up going to this neighborhood. He drove through. He parked. He ran in. Came right back. He said, "Yeah, everything's good." And then we went and had some drinks. We came back about 2 o'clock later. I guess we came in the back way because, like I said, I didn't know where we were at this point. I don't know anything about Cheshire.
Right.
We parked and we went to the house. And he immediately went to the Bilko doors in the back and went downstairs. Didn't walk around looking for a way to get in, which was not like he did the other night. Like I said, it was like he went right there and then he never came. The times that he did go in the house the night before, he took the plastic gun with him.
Mm-hmm.
This time he didn't. And I'm waiting for him to come back up, and then I see a cat run into the sunroom and jump on Dr. Pettit. And that's when I see Josh coming in. He has a baseball bat held over his head. So I start waving to him like, come on out, like, what are you doing? This, I don't understand, because I said, he didn't let me know what the plan was going in. And
right.
We had a plan, but, he was breaking it. And I thought he was just going to open the door, and then he swung 5 times on Dr. Pettit. And then thought we were going to come into a dead body, but Mr. Pettit was on the floor, he was bleeding, and he was conscious. I couldn't tie him up because, I was like, I was screwed up because this was not supposed to happen. And from what I've seen, he could have just opened the door and he could have just let me in.
Right, because your intentions, I remember you telling me prior, your intentions were just to tie the family up and, let them go in the morning.
Right, keep everybody on the couch, let everybody know that, okay, we just want money, that type of thing. But once he hit Dr. Pettit, everybody had to be separated. How much time we have?
Right now, about 10 minutes.
Okay, so at that point, we were like, okay, he had tied up Mr. Pettit, and I was shocked that nobody was, up screaming. So we went upstairs, and the first room was Haley. And then we walked down the hall, and in the master bedroom was Michaela and Miss Pettit. And the light was on, the TV was on, and they were asleep. So we went back, we woke up Haley, tied her up, and I told her, look, we're just here for money, nobody's getting hurt. And then we went into the master bedroom, and he went on Michaela's side, I went on Miss Pettit's side, woke them both up at the same time and said the same thing. He took Michaela out of the room, and I secured Miss Pettit. I assured her, like, look, we're just here for money. We're not here to hurt anybody. And she was very calm. After everybody was tied up, we met up, and he was like, something like, Dr. Pettit moved or something. That's why he hit him. So we ended up going back downstairs, and we ended up bringing him down to the basement and tying Dr. Pettit up, and I thought he was going to die. Josh was spending a lot of time in Michaela's room saying he was keeping her calm. And so he was in charge of Michaela, and Dr. Pettit, and I was in charge of Haley and Mrs. Pettit.
Mm-hmm.
So I had let him go to the bathroom a couple times. So like I said, I definitely wasn't following, I guess, what you call, criminal protocol, because I didn't check the bathroom. There could have been phones or knives or guns or panic buttons.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I don't know what I was doing, but I let Haley go to the bathroom twice, gave her water, let Mrs. Pettit go to the bathroom once, and like I said, I tried to treat him with all the dignity and respect I could. I really wasn't comfortable doing what I was doing. Josh spent all his time in with Michaela. He said keep her calm, which was fine with me. And so I would travel throughout the house looking for stuff. I went downstairs quite a few times, grabbed some beers from the basement, and at some point realized that my glove had broken open. And me and Josh started discussing that, and I started worried about fingerprints. And then I brought up the fact of forensic DNA, and that's when he said fire destroys everything. So I wasn't on board with that at first, but I couldn't remember everything I touched, and I started thinking of transfer DNA, just dropping. So we agreed to go to the bank. I would go get gas. In the morning, I would take Mrs. Pettit to the bank. He would put Mr. Pettit, Michaela, and Haley in a car and drive off, and the house would be burnt once we were leaving. But as I was driving, I decided I can't do this. I had taken the change with me, and I was ready to leave. I had called Josh from the truck. I said, look, I can't do this. I didn't sign on for none of this. I'm leaving. Just go get in your car and leave. I'm going. And that's when he said, look, Dr. Pettit's going to live. I checked him. I'm an EMT. Everything's fine. Plus, you're already in it. Your stuff is here. Like I said, if there's DNA and fingerprints, you can't leave that behind. You can't leave. And like I said, it just made sense. So I took as long as I could getting back because I had to think about it. But I ended up going back, and I had a new plan. It's like, look, we don't even have to burn the house. All we got to do is pour gas on the floor, and the hazmat team is going to spray stuff and kill all the evidence. So that was going to be the plan. So in the morning, when I left to go to the bank, I took Mrs. Pettit. He was supposed to leave with Dr. Pettit and the kids and stay on the phone with me. He didn't do that. He kept hanging up the phone, and I kept calling. So instead of going to the bank I was supposed to in Waterbury, I changed and went to the bank at Cheshire because I really didn't feel comfortable about any of this. And that's where things went sideways coming back because, Miss Pettit did everything she could to get the money.
Right.
Because I didn't look at any of the statements, I didn't know that she didn't have enough money in her account. All I gave her was her checkbook and her license, because that's all you need to take money out of your account.
Right. Well, what I wanted to ask you, too, is who found the bank book? I mean, I know somebody found a bank book, and that's how you guys determined that there was a lot of money in there.
Josh did.
Okay.
So he's the one that's why I only grabbed what I grabbed. If I had known she only had $11,000 in her account, I wouldn't have asked for that. But we asked for it because you can't get it. I didn't know that they were going through a divorce until on the way back. She had told me about that. But the bank, because she didn't have the material, like the bank cards or the credit cards or any of that, there was something hinky because they did know about the divorce.
Right.
So they finally gave her the money. And because she had to tell them that, look, people are holding my family hostage, but the bank didn't really believe it. So when they called the police, and the police watched us show up, because I took my time getting back, they actually watched her get out of the vehicle first and go to the door, and I was back like a couple minutes. I mean, not a couple, I mean, several times.
Right.
Saw me show up. They didn't see me with a gun out and my hand on her.
Right.
Saw her get out of the car and walk like we knew each other. And then we stood outside because I didn't know I couldn't get in because the door was locked, and it shouldn't have been locked. And I didn't realize I had the key because it was in my house, even though I had the keys in my hand. So I ended up calling Josh after we were knocking, and Josh finally came down and let us in. And that's when we secured Mrs. Pettit. And he went to the living room, and that's when he told me we got a problem. He said, Dr. Pettit died. The kids are dead. I had to kill the kids. I left my DNA. Now you have to kill Mrs. Pettit. And he's sitting there with a box cutter in his hand, and he's sitting there with a bat. And I'm like, I got a plastic gun, and I don't know what to do. I'm pacing back and forth, trying to figure out what to do. And at some point, I seen the police, or what I thought was a cop car, and I just lost it at that point because I was trying to find a way not to hurt her.
Right.
And when I saw that, I strangled her, and there was sex, but it wasn't like pleasurable. It was more like rage, because that's when I realized that she had said something. But then I stopped, and she was still alive. I had manually strangled her. When I went out to the garage to look for the cop car, I came back in down the floor with a ligature around her neck. So I know Josh, finished the task. But then when I
So you're saying that you started, but Josh actually
You have 1 minute left.
Yeah, and see, this is why I didn't want to do it in 15 minutes, because
Right.
now. But I can call you later tonight.
Okay.
We come out tonight at 16:55.
Okay.
Just press 1. To refuse charges, press 2. If you would like, thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
Okay.
Where were we?
We were talking about when you had gone into the house and you had just strangled Mrs. Pettit.
Okay. Are we live?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, so when I'll start back a little bit further. When I had come back, she got out of the car first, went around the side of the house. It took me a few seconds to get out. I got there, I couldn't get in, even though I had the key. It wasn't my house, so I kind of forgot that I had the key. Once we got in, Josh had to come down, unlock the door. He unlocked the door, and everything worked fine after that. I walked in, we secured Mrs. Pettit. We went into the living room. He had the bat and the X-Acto knife, and that's when he told me that the kids were dead. He had to kill them because of some DNA thing, and that Dr. Pettit was also dead. And I had to kill Mrs. Pettit. So I started pacing back and forth. I was flipping out because all night I had treated them with as much dignity as I could. And now that we had the money, it was like, nobody's supposed to get hurt here. And my head was just spinning. So when I looked out the window and I saw a cop car, I just lost it. I snapped. I figured that, she turned me in too, and here I am struggling to save her life. So I did. I manually strangled her, and, there was sexual intercourse.
Right.
But it wasn't for the purpose of pleasure. It was more like it was a rage thing. And it only happened really, really quickly. Once I realized what I was doing, I stopped. Because I was horrified with myself. And then I remembered the cop. She was still alive and on the couch. I went out into the garage, and I was looking out the window, and I don't remember exactly how long I was there, but I didn't see any cop car.
Right.
When I came back in, she was on the floor with a ligature around her neck. And I hear Josh running up the cellar stairs yelling, headed escape. And I'm trying to figure it out. It's like, what do you mean he escaped? He just told me he's dead. I'm looking out the back.
Right.
I see him hopping up the Bilco doors. Josh grabbed the 2 containers of gasoline. He ran upstairs, and I took one, and I poured it downstairs. And I remember thinking, it's like, none of this is making sense. How is he still alive when he just told me he's dead?
Right.
And then he comes downstairs, and we're in the den just outside the sunroom, and he's got a book of matches. And it took him 3 strikes, to get it. The first match didn't work, the second match didn't work, and finally the third one worked. He launched it into the dining room, and we ran out. I think we ran out without the money, because one of us ended up running back in. I'm not sure if it was him or me. I've been trying to remember that. But he ended up getting in the driver's seat. We backed out. We backed right into a police car. We drove forward, and he ran straight into the police car.
So were the police cars in the driveway? Is that where you got caught, or?
No. When we got in the car and he backed out the driveway, a cop came sliding in to try and block the way. Josh backed into him, and I guess rear quarter, front quarter, spun him out.
Mm-hmm.
And when he went down the street, just past, I forget the name of the street that went around the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the cars were parked, nose to nose, I think. And Josh went right in between them and split them apart. And I wasn't seat belted in, so I ended up on the floor. I had banged my head, and I don't remember even getting out of the car. Apparently, I still had the gun on me.
Right.
I'm really surprised they didn't shoot me. But I know a lot of people dumped on the police for what they did and sending away SWAT and HRT. But people have to understand that, when things were reported to them, there was confusion at the bank as to whether this was real.
Right.
Because the bank also knew about the divorce. And when me and her showed up and she got out of the car, it didn't look like a hostage situation. And I was really upset that stuff never got into evidence because, the Cheshire police hid that.
Right.
They were embarrassed by how they responded. But that was, I guess, like my vindication that, I did treat her right all night. They're quick to say that all night it was torture and torment. And there's no question that all night it was uncomfortable. Like I said, it was a kidnapping. But there's no way she would have acted like she did if I was torturing her and the kids all night long.
Right.
The only reason she acted like that was because I was really good to her. And, I was so horrified when I found out that the kids were actually alive. That's when I went on a suicide mission. I wouldn't help out my defense team. I wouldn't give them evidence because, I think back on that, and I know if I had known them kids were alive, I would have ran through that gas. I mean, most likely I probably would have died too, but I never would have allowed that to happen. I mean, I'm horrified even to this day about what happened. For a long time I had nightmares about it.
When you got brought down to the police department, did they separate you and Josh right off the bat, or?
Yeah, immediately.
Okay, so you didn't say anything. When you found out that the kids had been alive, you weren't with him at that point?
Oh, no, I didn't even know that they were alive until later that night when they brought us to Yukon to do samples. That's when the officer, the detective told me that the kids were alive. I mean, were dead. At that point, they had told me that everybody was still alive. And, that nobody had died, and just to come clean and to talk about it. But I didn't talk about anything because, I was still trying to put things together.
Right.
Well, I spoke to the cop for like a minute, and then I said, I want a lawyer. And threw me a phone book and put me back in the cell. Josh gave a 17-page statement and I think a 45-minute videotape. But he put everything on me, and that's why they came at me first, because they thought I was the ringleader.
Right.
The media was really pervasive about, who was the ringleader, who was the leader. So because they thought it was me, that's why they made their announcement that I'm going first and it was me. But then once they started doing their investigation, they realized that his statement was all lies. He lied about absolutely everything.
Now, he's trying to get out now through an appeal. Do you know what the grounds for the appeal are? I mean...
last time I talked to my attorney, they're trying to raise a Brady issue because the tapes weren't raised. The Cheshire police had hidden that one tape that, talked about that they didn't think there was a kidnapping. That's why they sent the hostage people away. And I said they never should have covered that up because it really wasn't their fault. Like when you look at how that happened, I believe that's one of the issues was a Brady issue. He's trying to challenge the veracity of the DNA evidence, even though there's no challenge there whatsoever. I mean, he had sex with that girl. And that's another thing. A lot of people thought that the sex occurred when I went to the bank.
Right.
And I don't know whether it did. I believe there might have been something going on. But the time that when I came back from the gas station, that's when I noticed that she had different clothes. And when I said something to him, he said that it was because she wet herself and he allowed her to take a shower and change. And I kept going in and looking at her.
I have a question for you. Somebody brought up to me today, as a matter of fact. Are you aware of any pictures that were taken of any of the girls' genital areas or anything?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay, well first I just want to finish because like I said,
Okay.
I checked in when I was making my rounds, I would check on Mrs. Pettit and Haley, but I'd always walk in there and look.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he heard me coming, but she was always sitting there and she was always calm.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came back and she was still calm, that's why I didn't really think anything happened.
Right.
But yes, there were pictures taken. They were on his cell phone. They were never sent to me. They were never shown to me. And evidence actually showed that they were taken and never opened. And the time they were taken, it was either when I went to the bank or I went to the gas station.
Right, but what you're saying is that they were taken, but they were taken by Josh.
By Josh on his phone, and the times were stamped when I was out of there, and the files shown that they were never open. I remember my attorneys made a big deal about that because I never even knew that pictures existed. He said that it was to blackmail Dr. Pettit, which is BS, because they thought they were all of Michaela, of her vagina. But there was actually pictures of Haley as well, her vagina.
Right.
I said, you can't blackmail somebody with a picture like that because you don't know whose it is.
Mm-hmm.
Those were for his. So, I mean, everything he did was a lie.
Right.
Like I said, that's why I hate him. Because, he ruined my life as well. I never should have signed on to that. It was stupid, but I was really screwed up and desperate. I wasn't working my program. I had a lot of stuff going on. And now that I've been identified as transgender, more people that understand the situation understand why I really was screwed up.
Right. Well, I mean, the other thing is, too, I had asked you a while back if you had a chance to ask Josh questions, what you would ask him. So, again, I want to, go over that, too. If you had a chance to talk to Josh and say, hey, what would you ask him about that night?
I don't think I would ask him anything.
Okay.
Because I would ask him why he lied to me, but I already know why he lied because he knew I wouldn't go with it.
Right.
I can ask him why he did it, but I already know why he did it because he's psychotic.
Right.
He had, a rough childhood too growing up, but that doesn't excuse that behavior.
Right.
There's no question that I would ask him because one, the questions that I would ask, I know the answer to. And two, I don't believe he would even tell me the truth because he's not.
Right.
Now, and he wants to put this family through this all over again for no other purpose, but he will not admit what he did.
Right. That's the other thing, too. I know that you dropped all your appeals, and he, in turn, is going through the appeals, and you brought that up before that the family, should not be going through this again.
And the thing is, I don't know if people remember during my trial with Dr. Eric Goldsmith, but there was not guilty by reasonable insanity, like the temporary insanity based on extreme emotional distress. And the doctor said there was no question I had the second prong, that the situation itself was stressful. But in their mind, I didn't have the first one, and that's because they didn't know about gender dysphoria.
Right.
Now that they know about it, and I can actually back it all the way up to where I was 16, I have a defense for extreme emotional defense. And even though I actually could have a chance at getting off, I wouldn't do it because I'm still guilty. I didn't kill them kids, and I didn't, intend on anybody dying like that. But there's no question it would not have happened if I wasn't there. So, I mean, I have to own this. And even if I do have a chance at getting out, I can't roll with that because, I would just never feel right.
Right. If you had a chance to talk to Josh about his appeal, what would you tell him?
Stop doing this to the family. Just stop and do your time, and stop telling people here in Pennsylvania that you're some type of contract Republic or Democratic hitman working for, breaking into the governor's manager. Because, I mean, he's been lying to everybody. I have people that come here. Just stop lying and do your time. And stop,
You have 1 minute left.
Stop hurting these people, because it shouldn't happen.
As I mentioned earlier, this case really bothered me when I first learned about it, and it is so sad that this family had to go through all of this loss at once. All evidence will be linked in the show notes, and you can find all of the photos on our Instagram at Murder Tapes Podcast. You can also follow my personal at Annalisa, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening.